Ma'am, stop right there. This entrance is for authorized personnel only.
I'm authorized.
This
I
is my
work here.
entrance.
This is my entrance.
Anyone can get a fake badge made. Use the visitor entrance.
There must be some mistake. I'm a senator. I work here.
Huh, okay, sure. Maybe you're a staffer. Use the visitor
I
entrance.
can't. I have a committee hearing
I don't
in
know who
9
you think you
minutes
are.
upstairs.
Step aside now. You can call the sergeant or the clerk.
March 17, 2023, 9:47 a.m., the east entrance of the state capitol building. Ma'am, stop right there. This entrance is for authorized legislative personnel only. Senator Patricia Chambers paused on the marble steps, her briefcase in hand, her state-issued ID badge hanging visibly around her neck. She'd walked through this entrance 340 times over 8 years. Same route, same badge, same building where her official portrait hung on the 3rd floor. Officer, I am authorized legislative personnel. I'm Senator Patricia Chambers. Officer Marcus Thornton didn't look at the badge. His hand rested on his radio. Behind Senator Chambers, a white male legislator walked past them both, nodded to Thornton, and entered without showing identification. Anyone can get a fake badge made. The body camera on Thornton's chest recorded everything. The ceiling-mounted security cameras captured every angle. Senator Chambers pulled out her phone and pressed record. What happened in the next 11 minutes would expose a 9-year pattern of racial profiling, cost the Capitol Police their credibility, and end with a $27 million reckoning. Officer Thornton had no idea who he'd just stopped, but he was about to find out. Senator Patricia Chambers, 47 years old, 3-term state senator representing the 14th District, her credentials weren't just impressive, they were ironclad. Howard University, magna cum laude, Georgetown University Law Center, Harvard Kennedy School. Before politics, Chambers spent 12 years as a civil rights attorney specializing in police misconduct cases, 47 families, $89 million in settlements and judgments. She knew police violations because she'd prosecuted them in courtrooms across the state. Elected in 2015, re-elected in landslides in 2019 and 2023. But here's what mattered most. In 2020, legislative leadership appointed her chair of the Law Enforcement Accountability and Reform Committee, the committee that oversees police departments, the committee that controls $127 million in public safety funding, the committee that writes the rules police officers must follow. Senator Chambers had authored the state's Police Accountability Act in 2021, the law that mandated body cameras, the law that created independent oversight boards, the law that established early warning systems for problematic officer behavior. Every other Saturday, she ran a volunteer legal clinic for low-income defendants. She'd mentored 15 students from underserved communities through law school, respected across party lines, known for data-driven arguments and thorough preparation, first in her family to attend college, raised by a single mother who worked as a nurse. On this day, Senator Chambers was arriving for the final committee hearing on her police training standards reform bill, legislation she'd spent 14 months crafting. She never made it inside. Officer Marcus Thornton, 34 years old, badge number 4127, 9 years with the state Capitol Police, but his law enforcement career started elsewhere. 4 years with Riverside Police Department, then he transferred to Capitol Police in 2014. He graduated middle of his class, satisfactory marks in defensive tactics, but constitutional law, he struggled, required remedial training just to pass. Here's what his file showed: 11 formal complaints, 7 from Riverside PD, 4 from Capitol Police. 8 of those 11 complaints alleged racial profiling or discriminatory treatment. Every single complaint was investigated by his direct supervisor. Every single complaint was marked unfounded or unable to substantiate. The pattern was undeniable. Black and Latino individuals questioned about their right to be in certain areas, credentials demanded, authorizations challenged, always people of color, always dismissed by supervisors. Thornton considered himself a dedicated protector. He'd later tell investigators he didn't see color, only threats. Clear spring morning. Senator Chambers had followed her usual routine, parked in the legislative garage. She walked the same path she'd taken hundreds of times. Her briefcase contained 147 pages of hearing materials. Her state-issued legislative ID badge hung on a lanyard around her neck, clearly visible against her navy blue pantsuit. Standard professional attire, the same outfit she wore to session 3 to 4 times per week. The main legislative entrance on the building's east side was designated specifically for legislators and their staff. The protocol was simple: show your ID badge to security, pass through the metal detector. 6 years without incident. Senator Chambers' official portrait hung in the third-floor corridor. Her name appeared on directional signage throughout the building. She'd used this entrance approximately 340 times. 32nd. DS before Chambers arrived, Senator James McKenzie, white male, entered without being stopped. 45 seconds after the confrontation began, Representative Susan Hartley, white female, walked past them both. Thornton nodded. Morning, Representative. No identification requested. Officer Thornton had no dispatch call, no security alert, no suspicious activity reported. He simply observed Senator Chambers approaching from the parking garage and decided she needed verification. The daily legislative calendar posted at his station listed Senator Chambers chairing a hearing. The Capitol Police database included photos and names of all 150 legislators. Thornton checked neither. What Officer Thornton didn't know was that Senator Chambers had literally written the training manual on identifying racial profiling, and she was about to give him a master class. Thornton stepped directly into Senator Chambers' path. His right hand rested on his radio, his stance squared, blocking. "Ma'am, stop right there. This entrance is for authorized legislative personnel only. You need to use the public visitor entrance on the south side." Senator Chambers glanced down at her clearly displayed ID badge, then back to Thornton's face. Her first thought: I genuinely thought this was a new officer who had mistaken me for a visitor. I assumed once he looked at my ID, we'd both have a quick laugh and move on. She responded with professional calm. "Officer, I am authorized legislative personnel. I'm Senator Patricia Chambers. This is my ID badge." Thornton glanced at the badge. "Quick, no examination of the photo or name. Anyone can get a fake badge made. I need to see additional identification and verify your authorization." Through the glass doors behind him, Senator McKenzie was visible inside the building. Representative Hartley was approaching from behind Chambers. Senator Chambers maintained her composure. She reached into her briefcase and retrieved her driver's license and state-issued legislative credential card. She held them at eye level for Thornton to examine. The credential card included her official Senate photograph, her full name, her title, the signature of the Senate Chief Clerk, a holographic state seal, a barcode linked to the Capitol security database. She held the credentials steady for 7 seconds. "This is my state-issued legislative credential. It's linked to your security database. You can scan the barcode to verify." Thornton took the credential card, looked at it for approximately 3 seconds, did not scan the barcode, did not use his radio to verify. "This could be forged. I don't recognize you, and I know most of the legislators who work here." Senator Chambers' patience was visible. "Officer, I've been a senator for 8 years. I chair the Law Enforcement Accountability Committee. My office is on the 3rd floor. I have a hearing in 9 minutes." Thornton's response revealed everything. "Look, I'm sure you have some business here, maybe as a staffer or a lobbyist, but I need you to check in through the proper visitor protocol. This entrance is for actual elected officials." Representative Hartley arrived at the entrance during this exchange. Thornton immediately stepped aside, nodded to her, "Morning, Representative," allowed her to pass without requesting any identification. Senator Chambers' body language shifted, shoulders squared, jaw tightened. "Officer, I'm going to explain this once more. I am an elected member of this legislature. I have every legal right to enter this building through this entrance. I've shown you my credentials. What specific security concern justifies this detention?" Thornton's voice rose slightly. Ma'am, I'm asking you to cooperate. If you refuse to follow security procedures, I'll have to escort you from the premises. Senator Chambers' tone remained controlled but pointed. She read his nameplate deliberately. Officer Thornton, you just watched Representative Hartley walk past us without showing any identification. You're telling me you know most of the legislators, yet somehow you don't recognize the chair of the Police Reform Committee. Is that really your position? Thornton's response was cold. I don't know who you think you are, but right now, you're refusing to comply with a lawful security directive. I suggest you adjust your attitude. Senator Chambers would later describe this moment. That's when I knew this wasn't a misunderstanding. The phrase, "who you think you are," told me everything. He knew I was telling the truth. He just couldn't accept it. Senator Chambers pulled out her phone. One swipe, navigated to the state legislature website, turned the screen toward Thornton. On the screen, the Law Enforcement Accountability and Reform Committee page, her name and photograph at the top. Officer Thornton, I am Senator Patricia Chambers. I chair the Law Enforcement Accountability and Reform Committee. Right now, you are illegally detaining an elected state official attempting to perform her constitutional duties. I'm asking you one final time, on what legal basis are you preventing my entry? 4 seconds of silence. Thornton's face was visible in the ceiling camera angle, recognition dawning, color draining slightly, eyes widening. Senator, I didn't. You don't look like your photo on the website. I was just doing my job making sure. Badge number 4127. I'll need your supervisor immediately. And yes, I'm aware you're wearing a body camera. I'm recording this interaction as well. Thornton attempted recovery. Senator, this is a simple misunderstanding. There's no need to escalate this. I can escort you inside right now. Senator Chambers' final statement was precise. The misunderstanding was yours, officer. The escalation was yours. The violation of my rights was yours. Step aside, now. Senator Chambers entered the building but did not proceed to her hearing. Instead, she immediately approached the Capitol Police desk inside the entrance and requested the on-duty supervisor. Thornton followed her inside. Senator, again, I apologize for the confusion. I was simply being thorough with security. Senator Chambers turned to face him. Her voice was calm. Her tone was prosecutorial. What followed was a masterclass in constitutional law, delivered in real time for the benefit of every camera recording. Officer Thornton, what reasonable, articulable suspicion of criminal activity did you observe that justified detaining me? Thornton stumbled. I just wanted to be sure. What specific security threat did I pose that Representative Hartley did not? I didn't recognize you. Did you check the legislative calendar at your station before stopping me? Silence. Did you scan my credential barcode or attempt to verify my identity through your database system? More silence. Did you request backup or supervisory guidance at any point during the 11-minute detention? Nothing. Can you articulate any security protocol that authorizes you to demand a legislator prove their identity beyond showing the state-issued credential I presented? Thornton's responses dissolved into fragments. It's my job to check everyone. Senator Chambers spoke clearly, for the cameras, for the record. You detained me without reasonable suspicion. Fourth Amendment violation. You denied me access to a public building where I am an elected official performing constitutional duties. First Amendment violation. You applied scrutiny to me that you demonstrably did not apply to white legislators entering before and after me. Equal protection violation under the 14th Amendment. You violated Capitol Police policy, which prohibits pretextual stops based on appearance rather than behavior. The supervisor arrived. His reaction was visible on camera. Shock when he recognized Senator Chambers. Immediate pivot to damage control. Senator Chambers, I am so sorry for this incident. Senator Chambers' correction was swift. Sergeant, your officer has been at this entrance for 6 months according to the duty roster. This wasn't a training issue. This was racial profiling. She stated clearly for the record, "I want every camera angle preserved. I want this incident formally documented. I want Officer Thornton's body camera footage secured immediately, and I want to meet with Chief Rodriguez this afternoon." Thornton's voice cracked slightly. "Senator, I swear I wasn't profiling anyone. I stop people all the time. I'm just doing my job the way I was trained." Senator Chambers' reply was quiet, devastating. "Officer, I wrote the training manual you apparently didn't read. We'll discuss your interpretation of doing your job with your chief." The irony was institutional. Senator Chambers' committee had direct legislative oversight authority over the Capitol Police budget, policies, and hiring practices. She had personally questioned Capitol Police leadership in oversight hearings 4 times in the past 2 years. 1 year earlier, Chambers had specifically questioned the chief about complaint investigation procedures and racial disparities in stops at Capitol entrances. The chief had assured her that all officers receive comprehensive training in bias-free policing. Officer Thornton had been present at that hearing, assigned to security detail in the hearing room. He had stood less than 15 feet from Senator Chambers while she questioned his chief. The State Attorney General's Civil Rights Division led the investigation. 847 hours of body camera footage from Thornton's 9-year career were reviewed. Capitol Police entrance logs from his 6-month assignment. Complete personnel file. Security camera footage from all Capitol entrances. Dispatch records and radio communications from 340 shifts. 67 int. Interviews conducted. Senator Chambers gave a 4-hour formal statement. Officer Thornton sat for 3 interviews totaling 7 hours. 19 individuals who had filed previous complaints were interviewed. Statistical analysis was conducted. Computer analysis of stops by demographic data. Thornton's stop rates compared to department averages. All 11 previous complaints were reinvestigated. 7 complaints from Riverside PD. 5 involved black individuals questioned while in predominantly white neighborhoods. 4 complaints from Capitol Police. 3 involved black staff members stopped and questioned about their authorization to be in certain areas. Every single complaint involved a person of color. 0 complaints from white individuals across 9 years. Capitol Police database records showed Thornton verified authorization for 64 individuals during his 6-month assignment at the legislative entrance. Of those 64 stops, 47 were black individuals, 73%. 9 were Latino, 4 were Asian, 4 were white. Other officers at the same entrance stopped individuals for verification at less than 1/4 of Thornton's rate, and their stops roughly matched demographic proportions. 3 victim stories emerged. Marcus Williams, legislative research analyst, stopped by Thornton in the Capitol parking garage, questioned for 8 minutes about whether he really worked here despite showing his employee badge. He began using a different entrance to avoid Thornton. Sandra Okonkwo, Assistant Attorney General, stopped by Thornton while entering for a committee meeting, asked to provide proof of appointment despite explaining she was a state law enforcement official. David Chen, technology contractor, detained by Thornton for 12 minutes while Thornton verified his contractor credentials. Chen wore a visitor badge and carried equipment clearly marked with Capitol IT Services logo. Common themes. Thornton questioned individuals' right to be in spaces they were legally authorized to occupy, requested additional verification beyond standard credentials, applied scrutiny selectively based on race. Investigation conclusion. Thornton engaged in a consistent pattern of pretextual stops targeting individuals of color, justified through subjective claims of enhanced security vigilance. Direct quote from the final investigation report. Officer Thornton created a hostile environment for black legislators, staff, and visitors to the state capitol. His conduct violated constitutional rights, state law, and department policy. Equally concerning, his supervisors failed to identify or address this pattern despite ample documentation through the complaint process. The broader conclusion. This case reveals systemic deficiencies in the Capitol Police Department's complaint investigation procedures, supervisory oversight, and officer accountability mechanisms. The Capitol Police Officers Association initially announced it would fight Thornton's termination, but after the investigation report's release, the union quietly withdrew support. Officer Thornton was personally delivered the termination letter. His termination cited sustained violations of constitutional rights, department policy, and public trust over a 9-year period. Thornton appealed through civil service procedures. The Civil Service Commission hearing upheld termination unanimously, 5-0 vote. Senator Chambers filed a federal civil rights lawsuit against Thornton individually, the Capitol Police Department, and the state. The lawsuit sought $27 million in damages. The case settled for $8.7 million, the largest civil rights settlement in state history, $4.2 million to Senator Chambers, $3.5 million to establish a civil rights training fund, $1 million divided among the other victims identified in the investigation. The State Peace Officer Standards and Training Board revoked Thornton's law enforcement certification. He was ineligible to work as a police officer anywhere in the state. Thornton's revocation was entered into the National Decertification Index. Thornton filed for bankruptcy, divorced. He moved out of state. As of last reporting, Thornton was working in private security in another state. Thornton never issued a public apology. His attorney released a statement. Mr. Thornton regrets any distress caused and wishes Senator Chambers well. The financial costs were staggering. Civil settlement, $8.7 million. Legal defense costs, $1.3 million. Investigation costs, $287,000. Compliance costs for reforms, $4.2 million first-year implementation. Total financial damage, $14.5 million in direct costs in the first year. The department's reputation collapsed. Capitol Police's public trust ratings dropped 34 percentage points. Recruitment applications decreased 41% in the following year. Investigation identified 3 other officers with complaint patterns similar to Thornton's. 2 were terminated. 1 resigned before disciplinary proceedings concluded. The complaint investigation process was completely overhauled. An independent complaint review board was created. All discrimination complaints are now investigated by the Attorney General's Civil Rights Division, not internal supervisors. Mandatory referral to the review board for any officer with 3 or more complaints in 24 months. The Capitol Police Oversight Commission was established with subpoena power, access to all records, and authority to recommend discipline. Data tracking and pattern identification became systematic. Electronic tracking system for all stops, questioning, and credential verifications. The system flags officers whose stop demographics vary significantly from baseline population. Automated early warning system generates supervisor alerts. Body camera policies were strengthened. Supervisors are required to review 10% of all officer body camera footage monthly. Any interaction exceeding 5 minutes requiring ID verification is automatically flagged for review. Training curriculum was transformed. Implicit bias training increased from 2 hours one time to 8 hours annually. Constitutional law requirement, 40 hours in academy, 8 hours annual refresher. Every officer must complete scenario training where they are placed in situations of being profiled themselves. Early warning systems were implemented. Officers with 2 or more discrimination complaints receive mandatory counseling and supervisor review. Officers with 3 or more complaints are removed from public contact positions pending review. The reforms were codified into law. The Senator Patricia Chambers Accountability and Dignity in Law Enforcement Act, passed by the legislature. It applied all reforms to all state law enforcement agencies, not just Capitol Police. A department-wide review examined all complaints filed in the past 10 years. 347 complaints re-examined. The review identified 7 additional officers with problematic patterns. 4 resigned, 2 were terminated, 1 retired. 23 individuals who had filed previously dismissed complaints received formal apologies and settlements totaling $1.8 million. National attention followed. The Chambers case was featured in police training programs in 14 states. The Department of Justice published a case study. Senator Chambers testified before Congress about the incident and resulting reforms. 8 other state legislatures passed similar accountability measures after studying the Chambers case. Senator Patricia Chambers still serves as state senator, re-elected with 68% of the vote, her largest margin ever. She continues to chair the Law Enforcement Accountability and Reform Committee. Her police training standards reform bill, the one she missed the hearing for, eventually passed, signed into law. Her impact extends beyond legislation. She serves as consultant to 4 other state legislatures developing police accountability legislation. She published an academic article in the Yale Law Journal about her experience. She's keynoted conferences. She's testified before Congress twice about racial profiling. 1 year after the reforms were implemented, data review showed results. Capitol Police stops for verification decreased 73% overall. Demographic disparities in stops reduced to 4% variance from population baseline, down from 47%. Zero discrimination complaints filed against Capitol Police in the 12 months following reforms, down from an average of 7 to 9 annually. The case is now featured in Capitol Police Academy curriculum as a case study in what not to do, used in 37 police academies nationwide, taught in constitutional law courses at 12 law schools, included in Department of Justice civil rights training materials. What the case revealed: even people with expertise, credentials, and institutional authority aren't immune to racial profiling. Profiling operates on visual assumptions that override evidence. Systems that fail to track and address patterns enable individual bias to flourish unchecked. The lesson is universal. Credentials don't protect you from bias, but documentation, knowledge of rights, and systemic accountability can create consequences that change institutional behavior. Body cameras, security footage, and Senator Chambers' phone recording made denial impossible. Documentation transforms doubt into undeniable facts. Transparency forces accountability. Individual accountability is necessary but insufficient. Systemic change requires tracking patterns, independent of. Cite meaningful consequences for supervisors who enable misconduct, and sustained commitment to reform. Senator Chambers didn't just get justice for herself. She used her power to create systems that protect everyone else. She could have accepted an apology and moved on. Instead, she demanded the kind of accountability that prevents the next person who doesn't have her credentials from being subjected to the same treatment. Senator Chambers wrote in her Yale Law Journal article, "I was stopped not despite being a state senator who chairs the Police Reform Committee, but in some ways, because I'm a black woman who holds that position. My credentials didn't protect me, but they gave me the platform to demand changes that might protect the next person who doesn't have a platform. That's not justice for me. That's accountability for all of us."